You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Rolling. Don't use any of this. Don't.
Okay, carry 3.
Hi.
They love you. You know.
This is Princess Leia Organa. You're listening to Planet Leia.
Permission is granted to land on Planet Leia. Brought to you by Fantha Tracks. Here are your hosts, Claire Henry and Johanna Nibielios.
Hello everybody and welcome to the latest edition of Planet Leia. Now we're here to celebrate Star Wars Podcast Day, which is an unofficial celebration of Star Wars fan audio community. And every year the event brings together approximately 100 shows, including all the shows at Fantha Tracks. And we all share our love of fan-made audio with all our Star Wars fans, as well as wider podcast listening audiences. So if this is you listening to us for the first time, welcome. It's kind of the podcast version of May the 4th. Why is it February the 7th, I hear you ask? Well, it's the day that Jedi Talk, the very first Star Wars podcast, premiered way back in 1999. It kicked off a huge part of Star Wars fandom and what it does today. This is our 5th time doing Star Wars Podcast Day, and we've got lots of different shows from Fantha Tracks on it. So have a listen, and hopefully you'll go and listen to all the other brilliant Star Wars podcasts from Fantha Tracks and from beyond, because it just helps everybody. Maybe you might hear something a little bit different. So my name's Claire Henry, and I am joined by my co-host,
Johanna Nibielios.
And if you haven't listened to Planet Leia before, you'll understand why I don't always pronounce Johanna's surnames. Isn't that right, Johanna?
Exactly. So if you didn't know that, I'm sitting in Sweden and Claire is over in the UK. And yes, my name is quite uncommon actually for people to pronounce it right. So I better do it myself.
Yes, I think so. We've been podcasting now for,
we started setting it up in quite a different format back around Celebration in Chicago. Because then there were more of us doing it. But then various reasons, we slimmed it down. So now it's me and Claire and the whole focus on Planet Leia, well, Star Wars. But we are really working on and wanting to keep quite a female twist on what we're talking about. We're talking about the women of the Star Wars galaxy from all kinds of views, both from like behind the scene, in front of the camera, writers, producers, and not the least the characters themselves.
I've just thought, just before we start, and I know it's Star Wars Podcast Day, but the latest news and talking about females in Star Wars, we have to say farewell to Kathleen Kennedy. She, as most people who are in the Star Wars fandom know, took over the Star Wars franchise from George Lucas. He chose her. It was in Essen where she sort of put her vision for the new Star Wars and how it was going to carry on and continue and live in George Lucas's legacy, etc. I remember because I met her then. She was walking around with her husband, myself, and my Star Wars childhood friend, Andrew. We were in the child's area and Andrew was dressed as Darth Maul and we were sat there while the kids were playing a giant Connect 4 and Kathleen Kennedy was walking around the droid builders who were all around the children area. And it was absolutely hilarious because there were all these droids. There was the kiddies area and there was Darth Maul in the middle of it. And she just asked us, why were we here, what we were doing, what did Celebration mean to us, what did Star Wars mean to us. And I do believe at that point as well, that's when she met Lee Tarzi, who's now come on to do lots of droids for all the shows and all the films as well. So a lot came out of that visit for Kathleen Kennedy. For me, her legacy, I suppose, really is the films.
I would say, yes, the films, but also the whole change, I would say, in Star Wars, not in the medium. I mean, what we've seen is, yes, you had the films, but this, and that, of course, goes with the culture that we're having today, with the media landscape going more and more towards the streaming services and the longer TV series.
Yes.
We have talked a bit about it before, that at the moment she has really set Star Wars on a new course, but it hasn't really quite set yet where Star Wars is heading when it comes to what kind of media we are getting in the future, because they are still trying it out. What will stay, what will be the best? To be honest, I mean, it is a company. What will be the most profitable way for them to keep doing Star Wars?
But I have to say, in my opinion, I think she did a great job. I think it was a very challenging job to take over from George Lucas. He did choose her because of all her credentials before, etc. And I think she's weathered the storm.
Yes. I mean, she has gotten a lot of criticism, and I think anyone except George Lucas would have gotten that criticism. And we should also remember that, I mean, George Lucas got a lot of criticism for the prequels as well. I mean, we Star Wars fans are quite critical of the thing we love.
Are we? No, really?
So I definitely think she doesn't deserve all the bad things people have been saying about her. I mean, she has been in that, but she hasn't been the one really deciding about all the creative processes and where Star Wars is heading. So it will be interesting to see. And I definitely think it's something we will talk about in the future, what's coming ahead.
I think this is, and we'll talk more, I'm quite sure, about who's taking over, what direction they're going to take. So it'll be interesting to see where it all lies and where it all begins, if that makes sense. But so a big thank you from me to Kathleen Kennedy. I had the privilege of meeting her again a couple of times after Essen. One was another celebration just as she was walking past, and one was at one of the film premieres. And she was lovely, really nice, very personable and interested, I think.
And from the Planet Leia perspective, one thing that has really been obvious since she took over is, of course, that the fact that we have so many more female voices in the Star Wars galaxy, both behind the scenes and in front of them, than there were before when it was George Lucas doing it all. It's definitely been good to see more women taking part in all aspects and more female characters having their own development that they maybe didn't have as much earlier.
Hi, this is Danielle from The Acolyte, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
This kind of leads on to our topic that we're going to talk about today, which is art and creativity in and around Star Wars.
Art is a really important part of, human culture, and I would say in Star Wars, art is important. But in the Star Wars galaxy, if we're just keeping to the films and those visual mediums, not the books, not the series, you don't really see a lot of fine art. You have some pop references, you have sports, you have the different music bands playing, but with fine arts, not that much, really. And in a big galaxy, there should definitely be room for fine art. But we do have some examples, and those are the ones we wanted to talk about. And one obvious is, of course, in Attack of the Clones, when Anakin is running up to meet, Chancellor Palpatine. He's actually at the opera, and they're watching this Mon Calamari ballet. And I'm not sure if it ever got the official name, but I know everyone called it the Squid Lake.
Oh, yeah, instead of Swan Lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, that is one of the funniest things. I mean, there's a prime example of Star Wars fans making it their own. I was looking at Wikipedia. I'll read you what it says about Squid Lake. Okay, it says Squid Lake was a ballet performed by the Mon Calamari Ballet during the Clone Wars. The experimental aquatic performance was created by a genius Mon Calamari composer. Its opening debut occurred at the Galaxy's Opera House the night before Senator Palpatine was elected Supreme Chancellor. Palpatine made his last appearance with his master at the ballet before he killed him later that night. One of the ballet's later performances took place at the Galaxy's Opera House shortly after the Battle of Coruscant. It was during this performance that Palpatine told Anakin of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, which the former claimed to be Sith legend. It's brilliant, isn't it?
If you're talking about fine art, it says something about the view of fine arts, like it's the background for a Sith story, like sinister, strange, you don't understand it. And that is where we see this concept of fine art. And I love going to the opera. I'm not quite as fond of ballet, but I have seen some ballet performances and I'm quite fascinated by this. I really like fine art as well as pop culture. And this makes it even more interesting that when we see a ballet in Star Wars, it's as a background for a Sith story.
I've been listening to Al Pacino's autobiography. But an interesting thing about that is that he didn't know he didn't get Han Solo, which I thought was quite interesting. He did mention it in there. But he was talking about the scene in The Godfather when Michael Corleone has to kill somebody. So the backdrop is an opera. And I wonder, is that where George Lucas got it from? Because obviously Francis Ford Coppola, Spielberg, Lucas, and this is what Al Pacino was saying, is that they were all together doing all this experimental stuff. You know, did he pull that idea that almost like dawn of realization or, you know, or the coming of evil, something so beautiful in a Star Wars fashion? I suppose the opera, it was their sort of opera. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, in a way, if we're talking about that, what made me think, I mean, Francis Ford Coppola is, well, Italian-American. In Italy, opera isn't fine art. It's everywhere. I've been to performances at open stage and you have the whole families going there and everything. Yeah. But then it's transformed over to US context with George Lucas coming from California. He's more like the hot rod guy, liking the fast car, liking pop music. And what he takes from opera is, I would say, like when Coppola is using it, it's because you have so much drama in opera.
Yes.
You have to suspend a lot of belief. It's definitely a suspension of belief if you're going to buy everything that's going on, because it's very hard, emotional, a lot of drama. And then what's been taken out of that context is it's just the drama in the background as a backdrop for something else.
Yeah. And if you think about all the films that use that scenario of they're at the theatre and they're watching something, but in the background there's a plot thickening or there's a sense of something going on. That I'm just thinking about that Godfather one where he eats the cannelloni and then he literally dies as the soprano hits the high notes. You know, I think that's probably where George Lucas was coming from.
It is very fitting, and I would love to see more of it in the Star Wars, because, I mean, sometimes Star Wars has been described, and I prefer that to actually call it a space opera. I mean, it's not really science fiction, but to have the space opera. Yeah. And John Williams' music is very operatic. I mean, he draws so much on Western late 19th century opera and their way of treating the music, and not the least Wagner. But it's so interesting to see like that transformation going on, and I would love to see more fine art.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
Collecting, as we've seen in Andor, is a pretty big thing. They do have museums. They like collecting old stuff and old things.
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of an appreciation of culture as well from the whole galaxy. Luthen Rail, when he's collecting stuff, it's really everything that's old and strange. But at least then they are talking about museums as well. So at least there exist museums in the Star Wars galaxy.
And interestingly, where it was filmed as well is in Valencia, and that's very cultural. There's the museum and everything around there too. So all those antiquities and all those artifacts that are there, then you can see them, can't you, in all the different films, or they've linked them. I mean, didn't they even link, isn't there one Indiana Jones?
Yes. I mean, then they have put all these fun props in the background as well. I mean, you do have that in Rogue One as well, where you do have collecting strange objects is a thing. But to quote Indiana Jones, that belongs in a museum. They shouldn't just be kept at private collectors.
But it seems to be in the newer films, obviously, where there's a little bit more maybe thought gone into them, because obviously George Lucas wrote the original trilogy. I know he wrote everything. He did have like a series of 9 or whatever it was that he had. But the newer films, the prequels and the new era sort of films, they all have this slightly more forethought into it. Like if you take a look at Padme's palace, that is fine art in itself. It's filmed in Italy, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I would say there, I mean, the first 3 films, and we're now talking when they were done, episode 4, 5, and 6, I mean, they are smaller in their scope. Even if you jump around with different planets, they are much more concentrated to fewer persons, and the conflict is much more clear-cut. Yeah. Then you come into the prequels where you have to like try to get the whole galactic civil war and pretending it. And that, of course, gives you more opportunities to show more culture from the different parts of the galaxy. Yeah. And what we get as well in Andor, where you really have different cultures, and it's much more trying to win what's going on in the galaxy and how the Empire is resisted through different kinds of cultures. Star Wars has gotten so much bigger than it used to be.
Yes.
We're talking about not just women getting a larger role. You do get more of a diversity when it comes to culture in the films and series today than you had back in the late 1970s.
And it is expanded because I think they see the potential of widening it. Because if you take a look at all the spin-offs, there's no reason why at Galaxy's Edge they can't do the squid opera or the portraits. It's all there, and it's just somebody somewhere at some point will take it and make it bigger and better.
So I have to ask you then, what would you prefer, like a tour at one of the exhibits of antiquities, or would you rather go to Squid Lake?
I think I probably would do the tour of antiquities, simply because, as you know, I have a very eclectic taste in music, and I have been to several operas, but listening to it, because I listened to it because I knew we were going to be talking about it, I listened to it. Yeah, no, I don't think that's for me. I think I would rather join Mon Mothma at the rave rather than sit in the opera. It was a bit belchy for me. What about you?
Well, the thing is, like, what we've seen of exhibits of antiquities and stuff is that, well, you need a really good guide to get there, to get some kind of context, and not like, oh, that's a fine thing. It's like when I'm going to an art museum. In the end, if you just see a lot of painting, yeah, that's a nice painting. But if you have someone explaining it to you,
100%,
it gets totally different. I think if I just go by myself and I don't have anyone explaining anything, I think I still would prefer going to the Squid Lake and be impressed by like the dancing and how they can move and do that, because I feel like that's easier to connect to than just going to say, oh, that's a nice object, I wonder what it is.
Agreed.
Hey, this is Lauren Mary Kim, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
I love it when we do go. We went to Rome, and we've been down to London, and we, you know, when we go to the cities and we do the, and we went to the Louvre, we had a guide, and a very knowledgeable guides, and they were able to like guide us around it. So you'd want a Luthen to come and tell you, this is what this is what that is. Do you remember the one where the girl was like spinning it around?
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking about Leia and that whole tablet with
exactly.
Phonetic alphabet. I mean, for me it would just be round stone thing.
I'm a night at the museum rather than a night at the opera in this case, I have to say, for now.
And then I'll go to the opera.
Yeah. Well, if you're allowed the two, then I'd do the museum during the day, and then I would do the opera at night. But if we had to just choose one, then that's the one I'd go for. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed our Star Wars Podcast Day special edition of Planet Leia, talking about Kathleen Kennedy and all things to do with fine art and live art. Until the next time, thank you very much for listening. Ask us any questions, or if you think that there's a topic you would like us to talk about, or you'd like to ask us some questions about, please email in or message Fantha Tracks on any of the socials. We're on Facebook, Threads and Instagram, so give us a shout out and give us a mention.
email radio@fanthatracks.com. Head to links at fanthatracks.com for links to our social media feeds, Fantha Tracks TV and Fantha Tracks Radio. Thanks to James Sample for the Fantha Tracks intro and our Planet Leia opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. New episodes arrive on Fridays at 7 p.m. UK time as part of the Friday night rotation, and our weekly video show Good Morning Tatooine goes live Sundays at 9 p.m. UK time on Facebook and YouTube. And remember, Fantha Tracks is absolutely free, so it costs nothing to stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news.
So from me, thank you very much, and may the Force be with you. And from Johanna?
Well, may the Force be with you too, and I'm really looking forward to talking more and to have you listening to us in the future.
We love you.
You know.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's Collecting Tracks.
We will never get that right.